Hi, and welcome to this tutorial in ArcGis Pro. Before we jump into the program, we're going to go through some basic GIS concepts. So the first thing, what is GIS? Well, GIS is a technology that is used to create, manage, analyze, and map all types of data. So GIS connects data to a map, integrating location data with all types of descriptive information. This provides a foundation for mapping and doing analysis that is used in science and almost every industry. Some key terminology in the GIS world. We have spatial data, which is any type of data that directly or indirectly references a specific geographical area or location. And we have two main types of spatial data. The two most common data formats used to store geospatial data are vector and raster format. Vector data is made up of point, line, and polygon geometries. It uses these geometry types to represent geographies and describe a geospatial shape. Raster data is a digital data structure used to capture, represent, and store spatial data that vary on a continuous scale. It is composed of a grid of pixels, where each pixel represents an area on the Earth's surface. Raster data is commonly used in digital aerial photographs, satellite imagery, and digital pictures. Another key terminology is layers. These are the mechanisms used to display geographic datasets. Each layer references a dataset and specifies how that dataset is portrayed using symbols and text labels. Features. A feature refers to an object or entity that possesses a specific geographic representation, such as a point, line, or polygon. Attributes. Attributes can take on various forms, and in GIS, they are typically categorized into different field types. These field types include character, text-based values, integer, whole numbers, floating, decimal numbers, date, and BLOB, binary large object for storing images or files. So you can think of the attributes as something that gives the features information. So the feature versus attribute. To understand the difference between a feature and an attribute, think of a feature as the spatial location itself, while an attribute is the additional information associated with that location. So now we are in ArcGis Pro, and we have just started a blank project. And the first thing we have to do is to go to the Insert tab here in the ribbons section and press New Map. Here we can specify a new map, a new global scene, local scene, or a base map, but we will use the new map here. And we can see that we have a topographic map with some hillshade right off the bat. So in our contents pane is where our layers will be placed and our base maps and background maps. So you can see that the world topographic map, if I press it off or click it off, you can see that it is no longer active in our main display window here. So I will keep these on, and I will navigate to this city, because this is the city I have prepared some mock data for the purpose of this tutorial. So we have now created our map, and we want to specify the coordinate reference system. So we right click on the map and go to Properties, and we go to Coordinate Systems, and you have to choose the coordinate system for your data or where you are working. But I'm gonna choose the projected coordinate system and go to UTM, Europe, and I'm gonna find the one that is used for this area in Norway. which is the UTM zone 32N north. And I'm gonna press OK so that this will be the project's coordinate reference system. So we have the contents pane where we have our data dragged in or imported into our project. And on this toolbar here, we have some shortcuts for different tools. And on the right-hand side, we have the Catalog Pane. And the Catalog Pane is a component in ArcGis Pro that provide easy access to various data, tools, and project-related items. It is kind of a file explorer for GIS data, where one can organize, manage, and access GIS datasets among several things. So the one part of the Catalog Pane that we will focus on for this beginner tutorial is the folders element. It is from here that we can connect a folder to our project and then access the data we want. So we will connect to the data folder that I have prepared for this tutorial. So what we do is that we right-click on the folders, we press the Add Folder Connection, and I'm gonna choose this folder here, Data. This is where I have stored my data for this tutorial. So I press OK. Now we can see that it's located here, and I can press the triangle here, and I can access my vector data here. And we can see that we have 3 shapefiles. So one is subdistricts, population growth. The other one is called population today. And the third one is called nice hikes. We can just, when we have access to them here, we can just drag and drop into our contents pane here, or into our map, I should say. So when I did that, you can see that here is the symbology for the layer. And now everything is just one symbology, and we can see it here in the map. If I take away the background map, you can see these lines. And the population is a point shapefile, which contains information about the amount of people, or the number of people living at a specific point in the area. And we have the subdistricts polygon, which is a polygon shapefile that shows 3 features. You can see here that represents the subdistricts of the city, or this part of the city. So when we have imported our data to the project we are working in, we can start by exploring the data. So there are different ways of doing this. The first and quickest way is to use the explore method here. So this one, if I press the triangle and see the possibilities, this shows how we can access the different layers. So I normally use this selected in content because this is more flexible, I believe. So what it means is that the one that is selected here, when I identify, that's a big window. When I press on a feature, it becomes identified, and a dialog box pops up with the information in this table format. So the only information of interest is the population field, which says that 240 people lives at this area. If I press another one, we can see that, for example, this one is 400. If I change to the nice hikes layer and I press the points, nothing works because I need to click on the thing that is, or the layer that is selected in the contents pane here. So you see I clicked on the line because this one is selected, and we get the information. We have the length of the hike, the popularity, which is rated on a scale from 0 to 100, and we have the name of the hike. So this one is called the Walk of Love. So we could use the other ones here, topmost layer or visible layers, then you can access everything. This is also a flexible option to have enabled, but I like the selected in contents, because then I really have to have control over my data. But the other way of exploring your data is right-clicking the layer and going into the attribute table. So the attribute table gives you all the information about the features or the layer's attributes. So this one is only population. I can open the attribute table of the nice hikes, and it becomes another tab here where we have the name, the popularity, an error in the dataset where we just have an attribute column that is called J, and we have a length attribute column. We can do the same for the subdistricts. So we have the name of the subdistrict and the growth, which means that how much the area will grow until a certain year in the future. So this is 30%. And when you click on one of these rows, the feature becomes selected. So if I click on this one, you can see that the borders are highlighted, which means that this feature is selected. This is a nice way to see in the map which feature you are actually looking at. So when I click on this one, you see that this one is selected, and then this one is the last one up here. So when we are working with data, it is very useful to give the data symbologies. So this makes it very easy to see the differences and just explore your data visually in the map. So as I mentioned earlier, these have only one symbology, which is showed under the name of the layer. So if I want to change or adjust, modify the symbology of my layer, I right-click on it. I go to the symbology here, click it, and the symbology pane becomes visible on the right side here. So here we can see the symbology that is currently in use. We have a single symbol, and this is our single symbol. So if I click on this symbol, I can choose one symbol from the gallery. For example, this cross. And now everything will have the same symbology, and we see these crosses in our map, or a triangle. I can choose a circle and go to properties, for example. I can change the color here. When I change the color, I have to click on apply. I can change the size here. So you have a number of different possibilities. So you can play around with these options. But one thing that is really neat is that we can press this for the primary symbology, and we can, for example, have unique values, graduated colors, and a bunch of different options here. But I normally use the graduated colors if there is an interval that you want to have the same symbology for, and different intervals of values have different styles or a different symbol. So you can see that when I chose the graduated color, you can choose the field here, and I want to stay on population. I want to have natural breaks, and I just want to have 3 classes. So right off the bat, it gives me a suggestion. I can modify that if I want. The upper value are the breakpoints. So everything below 200 will have this symbol. And I can change this one if I want it to be 300 for the breakpoint instead. So you can see we have gotten the symbology straight away. Yellow here, red here, orange here. And you can see under the name of the layer, the style is showed. And if I want to specify something in the labels, I can say 90 to 200 persons, for example, and it becomes visible here. So in this way you can make it more clear what your symbology is representing. And if you want, you can click on the symbol, you can increase the size, press apply. So now we see that the yellow ones are bigger. So this is a nice way to make some styling of your data, to visually explore it in the map. Really neat. Another cool thing, which I will use the nice hikes layer to explain, is that when we look at the symbology, you can see when we have the symbology pane open, the layer I click on will become the active one. So now I'm looking at the symbology for the nice hike layer. Now it's for the subdistricts. If I cross it out, it's no longer visible. But then, as I showed in the when we first looked at the symbology pane, I right-click and click on symbology on the layer here. But for this data, I'm going to go to the nice hikes attribute table. We have a name for the different hikes. So what will be very nice for this data set is to use unique values, and for the field that we will use to symbolize our data, we will use the name to do this. So now you can see that each name, each unique feature has its own symbology. And you can see this one is pink, this one is blue, the colorful street here. And we can, as we did earlier, we can change the label if we want. We can click on the symbology, or I mean, we can click on the symbol for each feature. Maybe make the line width larger. So you see it becomes more easy to see what is which feature. So the banana walk is apparently this one. There are other more advanced ways to symbolizing your data, but I think this is enough to get you going. So I will leave it at this for this beginner course. But in future videos, I will show some advanced techniques for symbolizing your data. Up until now, we have only looked at vector data, which is point, lines, or polygons. We also know that we have raster data. And for this tutorial, I have prepared a raster here. So under my data raster, here is a digital terrain model. I will drag and drop it here. So if I use my mouse wheel and scroll outwards, you can see the digital elevation model here. So when I have it active and click on the map, I can see the, let me put on the background map, go into our area. So you can see when I have the digital terrain model selected, when I click in the map, I get an elevation for the pixel I clicked on in the map, which is the elevation of the terrain here. So likewise for the vector data, when we right click and press symbology, we get different possibilities to style our data. And the most basic thing is just to change the color scheme. So we can use this one, and we can, for example, choose whatever we want. So when I choose this symbology, we can see that the scale is shown here. So we have -55 to 361. So probably a hole somewhere since I got that value. But we see that we get it becomes easier to see where we have high places and where we have low places. When red is fairly low and yellow, green, blue, purple are higher. So this is a nice way to quickly symbolize your raster data and explore it visually in the map. So in order to show some basic analysis, I will use the nice hikes layer. And when I prepared this data set, I created this length column here, and I will just show how I did that, because you can calculate geometries and do all sorts of calculations when you have created a field. So the way we can do that is that first we define the field and then we do the calculation. So in order to define the field, we have to go on here, field, and add. And since I already have a length, I will just call it length or length 1, just because I can't have a duplicate name or the same name for the attribute column for the layer. So when I have set the length, I will keep the data type as long because I want to have a number, and I will save the changes I made to the attribute table. So now when I saved it, you see that the column is here. I will close the fields where I define the fields for the attribute table here, so I get back to the map. When I have this attribute column ready, I can right click on it. I can calculate geometry here. So we have the input feature, which is the nice hikes layer. I have the length 1 field, which will contain the length. I have some options here, geodesic length, but I'm just going to choose this one. So I get the 2D length of my features. And for the length unit, I will choose meters. And for the coordinate system, I will just use the current map, because my current map has the coordinate reference system defined, so it will capture that automatically. And now you can just press OK. The calculation will be done, and you see if I click on the row number 1, this is this one, the length of this hike is 198 meters. And just be aware, this is just completely random data I made for the purpose of this tutorial. We can do the same thing for our sub-districts. So I will enable it here. You see that some of our features are selected here. If I go to the map pane here and go to the selection area here, I can click on clear. So now everything is cleared from the map. Nothing is selected anymore. So I will go to my sub-districts population growth layer. I will go to the attribute table. I will define a new column here because I want to know the area of each polygon feature. So I will click on add. I will call this area, and I will keep it long because I want it to be a number. I can choose between different things here, but long is sufficient for this purpose. And when I have set the area, I can press save, so that in my attribute table, the attribute column area is defined. Like we did for the lines or the hikes, we right click, we click calculate geometry. The property area, the unit, it's in square meters I want it to be, and I choose the current map for the coordinate system. Press OK, and our areas in squared meters are calculated here. So the biggest one according to the number is the feature in row 2, and when we look at it visually in the map, it looks like the biggest one. This one looks like the smallest one, and the numbers agree. So these are some basic calculations you can do, and over to you can do a lot of GIS analysis in ArcGis Pro. You can do everything, but for this beginner tutorial, I'm going to show a very useful GIS tool, and it is often used for different industries and for different purposes. So for the demonstration of this tool, I'm just going to make the symbology a single symbol like this. And I want to create a buffer for my hikes. So we will create a buffer that creates an area that shows you cannot do things that damages the landscape around this area. For example, for construction purposes. So in order to do that, we go to the Analysis tab here. We will go to the Tools in our Geoprocessing area. And I will just, you can search for any tool you need, and I will search for Buffer. And here it comes, the Buffer Analysis tool. I click on it, and it asks me which input features I want, and I want from the Nice Hikes layer. And the distance for my buffer, I can choose it to be 2 meters. Set the units to meter. And you have different methods. I will just use the planner method here. And you can have a dissolve type. I won't do that. I just want it to be, if you have this dissolve, you can merge everything into one single feature. But I don't want that. I want a different feature for each of my hikes. So when everything is defined and we press run, the analysis will be conducted and the buffer is applied to our hike line geometry. So we have put a buffer of 2 meters on our hikes. And as we see in our contents area, we have received a new polygon layer, which is called Nice Hikes Buffer. And if we look at the attribute table, we can see that we have the information from the line geometry as well as the areas of the buffer. Very useful and often used GIS processing tool, this one, to create the buffer. So now we have looked at how we explore existing data sets, how we can do analysis and explore it, create symbologies. The next topic will be how do we create and edit our own data. So for this, I will just close these ones and also this one. So I'm back in our Catalog pane. And we have our data here. Let's say I want to create my own data set. And I will store this in a separate folder, which I called training here. And in my training folder, I right click, I press new, and let's say I want to create a new shapefile. So I click on the shapefile. I give it a name. For example, I'll call it recycle bins. And I want this to be a point geometry. Doesn't need to have any elevation values for this purpose. And for the coordinate system, I will use the current map. So the important thing, give your layer a name, define the geometry, set the coordinate reference system, and just click on run to define your data format. And that was pretty quick. Now our recycle bins data is located here. And if I click on the attribute table, we see that there are only the defaults, FID and shape and the ID. I want to create my own attribute column. So I click add field. So I can call this attribute column type. And I want the data type to be text. And that is it. So I press save here to save the changes to my attribute table. And we can see the type has become accessible here. In order to create our own features, we have the layer selected here, we go to Edit here in the toolbar section, and we press the Features Create here. Create Features. And in the Create Features pane here, we press the Recycle Bins. And now, when this one is active, we can see that point, create a point feature. You just place it in the map. So let's say we have been out in the field and we have seen a bin here, 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 here. So when we are done placing out our points, we just exit out here, close it, and we look at the edit that we have to save our edits so that the points we have drawn in our map is saved. And I just thought of a new attribute column. We could say we could create a new attribute column that is called, which is called condition. And I will have this as a text field as well. I will save it. So when we will give data to our features that are drawn in our map, we can take the row, click on row number 1. We see that this one is selected with the cyan color here. And I can say that this is type A for recycle bins. I don't know anything about recycle bins, but type A seems like a possible type. And the condition, we can say that this one is in good condition. This can be B, this can be A. And here we have a type C recycle bin. So this is how we just give our features descriptive information. And if you need to know which one you're looking at, just click on here and you see them being selected in the map. So I can say that this one was bad, not so bad, really bad. And this one was really good. And when we have defined our descriptive information for our features, we go to the Manage Edits here to save them. This is important so that our data is saved. So now we have defined our own data set. We have drawn the features in the map. We have given them descriptive information, and we can create symbologies like we did for the other data set that we worked on in the previous chapters. But one thing that is very handy to know, when we create our features, we might have drawn them wrong or placed them wrong in the map. Then it's very useful to know how to modify your features. For the descriptive information, it's as easy as it gets. You just click on the field, and you can, instead of saying good, you can say really, really good here. And we save it here. So changing the attribute table is really easy. But when we have to change the placement in the map, we use the modify features here. When this one is selected, we have a bunch of different tools in how we want to modify our features. For the point shapefile, I might want to move it, so I will change the move the selected features. And one thing that is important to note, it's the selected features. So in order for you to select the features in the map, I always right-click on my layer, go to selection, and make this the only selectable layer. Because when I have this, I can go to the selection here and choose a polygon or rectangle to select, and I can just draw a rectangle, and you see that my layer becomes selected here, or my features become selected. If I try to select the hikes, it doesn't work because I have already said that it's only the recycle bins that we will be able to do a selection on. And that's because I want to modify these features now. So when I click on move here, it asks me to select one or more features. So if I draw a rectangle over this feature, you see that I can move it. So I can just click on it and drag it wherever I want. And when this is the original placement, this is the new placement. If I click on this, finish, or F2, it will go to the new location. Likewise, I can select this feature, drag it here, press F2 or click this finish icon here, and it is moved. And as always, when you do edits or create data, you have to save them. So I click on save here. If you did a mistake, you can discard it. Your original data will be the one that is shown. But I want to save my data, so I click here. And what I have shown for the point geometry that we created for these recycle bins items, it's the same for the line and polygon data. It's just that when we choose point, we draw points, line, we create line geometries, and for polygons, we create polygon geometries. Now we have gone through a lot of the basics that we need in order to work efficiently in a GIS environment. The last thing that we will look at in this tutorial is how we make maps, because often we need to get our data in, create it, visualize it with good symbology, and we need to present it in a map that we might export to an image or something, which we will insert in our reports, for example. So this is a very useful and important skill to master. So in order to create a map, we need to create a layout. And to do this, we go to the Insert tab here, and we go to New Layout. But before I do this, I'm just gonna choose this one, Population Today. So I'm gonna make a map of this data set, which is for this area in this city. So I'm gonna press New Layout. I'll choose the portrait or landscape or whatever dimension I want. I normally use this one, the A4, which is landscape mode. And now you can see that we get our layout here. In order to draw in our map, I click on our map frame and I choose the map that we created. And I drag it from corner to corner in this layout, and we see everything is shown here. And I want to change the view, so I right click in the map, click on activate, scroll my mouse wheel backwards. When I click in the mouse wheel, I can adjust the view, so I drag it with the clicked in mouse wheel. And when I'm done, I'm going to layout here and close activation. I want to insert, so I go to the Insert tab. I want to insert a north arrow. So I will draw a north arrow here. I want to add a scale bar. I will place it here. And when I double click on the scale bar, I can do some formatting. So I want it to show meters instead of kilometers. I want to have only one label shown. So I will have no division and subdivisions, and I will only have a single label. So I have 80 meters, but if I extend this one, it becomes 170, 210. It's okay for now. And we need our legend, which will tell us what we are looking at in our map. And I will just first draw it in here. And it says population today. I can change the title of the legend, but I will keep it as it is. And I will go to the display area here and set the border to black, the background to white. And I will place this down here. And as we can see, our symbology isn't that consistent. We should have persons for each row. But that, I guess you get the point. And I will go back to the layout, and we see that it is updated. And we can go to our legend, click the arrow. If we click on our population today item, I will close this. Double click on the population today. You can see that we get access to the different things that we can show. So we have the layer name, which is this one, which is population today. We have the headings for our symbology. And here I don't need to show that because the layer name is descriptive enough. It shows the population today. And then I adjust it again so it's down here. When we have created our map, all we need to do is go to share and export layout. You can also save your layout file here, so you can use it later for different projects if you have a specific setup that you want to reuse. So that's possible. So export. And I want to export my layout at the folder where my project is. So I will go to Browse here. And I will create a new folder, which I will call Maps. I will go into this folder and name the JPEG of my map. I will just call it Map Population Today. Like this, and I press save. And when I click on export, you can do some different quality adjustment and the resolution here. I normally leave it at the default. And when we press export, our map is being exported to the JPEG. So we can use it, for example, in our documents or the reports that we are writing. So if I go to my folder and I go to maps, you can see that my map, the map I just created, is here. And it's called Map Population Today. And here it is. So this is how we create maps. And of course, you can show as much data as you want. If I want to show the recycle bins, you see that they are here and they are automatically added to the legend. So I think this is enough for the beginner tutorial. I believe that with these things that we have covered here, you have all the tools you need to get going and start using GIS software, or ArcGis Pro in this case, to be able to work very efficiently with spatial data. So I hope you found the tutorial useful. If you did, it would be very nice if you gave this channel a subscribe and like the video, share it with your friends and colleagues. I will be making shorter videos of ArcGis GIS Pro in the future, where I will show different tips and tricks that I have picked up after I started using the software. So stay tuned for those videos, and I will see you there. Have a good day and take care.